Algonquin people who are the traditional guardians of this land. I acknowledge their longstanding relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. I pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home. I acknowledge the traditional knowledge keepers, both young and old. I honor their courageous leaders, past, present, and future. And for me, I think it's really important, the land acknowledgement and understanding women leaders have long been in a powerful force, and it's so exciting to be part of a group of women and learning from those in all areas of the place that we call home. And so especially when we're looking at, the globe such as it is, to understand that the peoples and recognize the peoples that were before us. So here's our Padlet. This was a snapshot of what we took before. So perhaps this is a good place for the five of us to introduce ourselves. So I mentioned I'm Trista. So I'm in North America on the map here, in Ottawa, the capital of Canada. And I work as a district leader for a school in the province of Quebec. And I also manage a project called ARC Education Project, and brings different national systems together to do good work together. We try anyway. Who would like to introduce themselves next?
I can do next, Trista.
Great.
Hi, everyone. It's Maria. I'm Maria Caparu, and I'm an academic member of staff at the University of Southampton School of Education. And I'm currently the Education School Employability Lead. I have been the Associate Director of the BSc Education Program for 3 years, but this role has ended. And I have also taught education programs, I think, for the last 17 years or something like that, in different sectors, different education types of school, different levels of education, different types of schools, further education, colleges, secondary schools, higher education in various countries, such as in Greece, England, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and so on and so forth. I have also conducted research and do some other business related stuff in other countries, for example, in Australia, in the Maldives and Thailand, the UAE, Saudi Arabia. I also have a business background, and I have been in leadership positions in different education sectors. Before joining Southampton, I was working for the University of Nottingham and the University of Warwick, and also a higher education department in Greece. I'm really happy to be here today, and I look forward, to have this discussion and get to know more about you through this discussion, really. And by the way, I found that book very, very inspiring.
Awesome. So great to hear you. It's so nice to see you, Maria. It feels like yesterday, even
Likewise, exactly. Yeah. When we first met, Trista, at ICSI conference.
Yeah, no.
Glasgow. Yeah.
Rania, do you want to go next?
Yeah, Rania Sawalhi. I'm originally from Jordan, currently live and work in Qatar, work in Qatar University in the honors program. I also volunteer and work in different organizations related to education leadership. I'm so happy with this amazing event that started with Book Club Me. So now we're booking clubbing everyone to see how we can enjoy this lovely book. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much, Rania. How about you, Andrea?
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea, Sydney, Australia. It's evening here. I am currently doing my doctorate on coaching early career teachers. I work for Growth Coaching International, so my passion now, I'm very fortunate to be able to share that with a lot of different people. I'm also volunteer on a few committees, so including ICSI and ACEL in New South Wales. So primary teacher training and became a pedagogical coach within the school, K-12 school. So I'm really thrilled to be working with all of you. This is not work. This is fun.
It's fun. Yeah.
Fun. It's so true. It is fun.
And we've got Robin tonight as our guest. Robin, do you want to share your story?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So thank you so much. It's really so lovely to be with all of you and to reconnect with you, Trista and Rania, and to meet you, Andrea and Maria. It's just been such a lovely experience getting to connect with this global community of people who care about making our human experience more connected, more caring, and more based in a deep integrity about how we show up. So I'm from South Africa. I have a very mongrel background, but having come out of 17 years in medical practice, I've been in the education space for the past 6.5 years, really immersing into what does it mean to create environments where human potential is allowed to reach its full, its optimal, and its complete beauty. And so, you know, Dare to Lead is just so aligned with all of those ways of thinking about how do we find our best, truest selves, how do we share them, and how do we become brave and courageous in the way that we lead our lives. So thank you for the opportunity to both read it with you and to discuss it with you.
Absolutely. And I think that, to me, this is, you know, it clarifies what I always think around the hardwired for connection. And I think this book club itself speaks to that. So it was a kernel of an idea. Just how great would it be if we read a book that inspired us as women leaders? Well, how great would it be if we read a book together? And then I think the idea of, you know, being brave and courageous is putting it out there and actually making it public. So that was a bit of a step and a leap, and to have an opportunity to learn with others. So I look forward to watching in the chat to see what people are saying, so that we can have a conversation between all of us and bringing a group of women together who we all met last year. I think before everything got a little bit topsy-turvy for all of us in our different spaces, but it was about connections and a meeting and relationship, and really thinking about that idea of what we can learn from one another, and the power of connection and the power of learning, and especially seeing how do these ideas land in different spaces for different people, I think is the goal for today. So starting us off, we actually really wanted to keep this as an informal chat. There were some guiding questions that drove us as we read. So these are the questions that we had posed, and they're what we'll probably see what sparks. And for me, I'm just going to start here with a quote that I pulled out: "As who we are is who we lead." And it's for me, it's something I know in my bones. But sometimes as a leader, I don't always live it. It's trying to find my space and try to, I guess, sort of adapt, but recognizing I really do need to stick to the values. And at this point in my life, this is the space that I need to be thinking about. And so the value work in Brene Brown's book was really helpful for me to remind me, what are those values? What are the 2 values specifically? How are they aligned? And for your information, my word of the year, so instead of resolutions, I always pick a word of the year, like many people, and it was alignment. And it's just interesting that all these things keep coming together. Where are my values aligned? What are the choices I'm making, and are they aligned to my values? So I found that a really important and useful space from the book. So I'm going to open up the floor. Maybe Robin, do you want to start us off as the guest, our special guest today?
Oh, it's so good to be special.
You are special.
So Trista, yes, you know, I think what's so beautiful about Brene's work is that it's not claiming to be something new or revolutionary. It's a way of translating a truth about how human beings are, that is universal and is also ancient. You know, this way that we show up in integrity, and what does it take to do that? So for me, I think the biggest concept, I was thinking this morning, kind of just skimming back through, and there's so much that really resonates for me, but I think this concept of how do we understand our own integrity before you can't show up before you do the self-leadership part first. So until you actually really start to understand who you are, identify, acknowledge, name your core values. Only then can you start to try and bring that into the way you interact with others. And that takes courage because, because we built for connection, we're afraid that if we bring the truth of ourselves, it may damage that possibility for connection. And yet, quite honestly, unless we bring the truth of ourselves, we're not really connecting. So it's a conundrum. And at the heart of it lies this need to be courageous. So to do the work to really go deep within ourselves and practice our own self-leadership, our own understanding of what we believe in, how we want to be in the world, what matters to us, and then bring that with absolute courage and honesty into the relationships that we have. And again, just to say that this concept of leadership is it's not for a selected few. It's actually for all of us, because it's how in our own lives, whether, whatever it might be, moving past the hierarchical thinking about leadership and understanding leadership to be a way of bringing good into the world, wherever we are and whoever we are and however we choose to do that. So let me stop there.
I'm curious, Robin, can I
Yeah.
ask you a question? I'm staying in the curious dance. So where do people learn the good leadership skills? Is that through reading and self-awareness? Is it having a really good role model? Is it having a role model that you don't want to be like? That's a big question of mine for people who are aspiring leaders, is where do they learn these skills? Is it start with self?
So I'll answer from my belief, which is that yes, it starts with self first. But it draws on all of the spaces that we can find and learn lessons about leadership. So watching somebody who we admire, seeing how they show up in your own family, seeing what leadership looks like in a family context. And then really having the courage to start to become self-aware, and not almost, I think that the leadership element comes after, not before. So we don't decide we want to be leaders and then think, well, how do I go about doing that? I mean, it may have to work that way. And I think for many people who find themselves placed in positional leadership roles where they now really need to gain skills, it may happen in the inverse. But ideally, the greater our practice of self-awareness and of paying, Ato Sharma puts it so beautifully, paying attention to our attention, being aware actually of where our attention is going and how we are bringing it into the world and how we are showing up. That's what creates the opportunity for leadership opportunities to come into our lives. I don't know if that fully answers what you were asking, but I'm not really an expert in the field. It's just my opinion.
No,
so it'd be good to hear from others.
Yeah, Rania, I'd love to hear your views on that.
Yeah, I was just talking from the point that Robin had mentioned regarding values. I liked how she emphasized the idea about practicing, either when she talked about being grateful, or when she talked also about, it's not only talking about your values, it's walking the talk. And I think that's something comes within becoming a good leader when we reflect on our own practices. Another thing that I'm answering your question, Tristan and Andrea, is I like the way how she tried to redefine many things. So she emphasized the words and giving them different or new perspectives just to make us aware, alert, or enlightening us. So going back, starting from integrity, the way that how she tries to emphasize it and link it to our own practices. So going back to values, yes, leaders need to be careful about their own values, the hidden one, and the obvious, or the on the top one, because sometimes they think that this is their own value, but it might not be the case, and it will drive their own behaviors, but they will not be cautious, or they will not be aware of why and how they're doing this.
What are you thinking, Maria?
Yeah, I think I agree with the argument that we, great leaders, not we, forget that we, great leaders can learn from their own experience, as well as by shadowing other good leaders and through coaching and so on and so forth. But I think it is important not to underestimate the fact that we also need strong leadership development programs to to be available. So the theories, underpinnings, and what they can learn from empirical research, for example, can inform their practice. And this is something that some great leaders argue that doing a master's program, for example, or a PhD research on one particular area really helps them to develop their intellectual and their academic capacity. So I think it's a combination, in my view.
It's really interesting. I always think about my own experience in leadership, and I was thrown into it pretty, I do agree. I think we're leaders and accompany one another all the time. So that idea of leadership not being before or after, but it's leadership that it's walking alongside others constantly. Mm-hmm. But I did get thrown into a vice principal role pretty early on in my career, and without having a lot of that development that you're talking about, Maria. And it was a struggle to understand, trying to emulate other people I'd seen in the role, trying to understand what the role could be, having this idea of a construct of what, a good leader is. And I hadn't figured out where I fit into it. And that whole who we are piece wasn't necessarily always showing up. And as I was reading this book, I was thinking again about the times that didn't feel right, were when I really wasn't, in the space, or recognizing, or I was working against something that was in my gut. And then as I was reading the failure piece, that was really resonating for me, right? The courage of failing, I'm like, whoa, and throwing yourself into so many different opportunities, and that's courage is still, I'm all in, but I know I'm going to fail. That is such a hard place to go, and so important.
Can I just add one thing here? I think a leadership program can act as a roadmap, but not necessarily. I disagree when we treat a training program as a blueprint. And what I liked a lot about this particular book is that it is dense with a lot of thought-provoking examples of some of the issues, the complex issues that we as women leaders, for example, have faced in our working settings. And it's not a blueprint of steps that we have to follow, we need to follow within a daring leadership framework. So the way I have treated this book was more of a coaching book to me. I think Andrea and Trista, mentioned coaching. So I felt that the book itself acts as a coach, which similarly to a real coach, a person, who is a coach, stimulated my thinking and helped me to stay curious about things. And it also made me feel comfortable to challenge myself and, realize that you don't necessarily have the right answer, but a coach, even if it is a coaching book, can help you find the answer, which in most cases, the answer can be inside us. So I really love the quote. What was the one? Sorry, let me find it. Choosing courage over comfort is not easy. So we really need strong courage
to start the change. And we really need strong leadership, because leadership is about challenging the status quo and stepping out of our comfort zone. And the reason why I mentioned earlier about my background is to share with you that my leadership experience comes from contrasting education systems, you know? Mm-hmm. So schools, higher education institutions which operate in contrasting education systems, centralized, decentralized, partially decentralized, and this can affect the way that we lead. This can affect the way that sorry, I don't want to dominate the discussion.
No, but I read this book over 2 years ago, and I wrote about it then. And I'm thinking, when I went back and read quite a few of the passages, because I'd underlined it all through and posted notes, so it was quite good for me. But I kept going through and I'm thinking, is this just me? Because where I'm at in my life, I see more of I wear a coaching lens all the time now, going through, but the psychological safety, that whole no judgment, you know, all that is in coaching, and the empathy and the curiosity and that feedback, even providing feedback. Everything spoke to me even more so this time, I think. The only one part I was talking to Rania about this, was that part where they said you need a good coach for those hard conversations. And I'm thinking, oh, is that with their performance? Is that really coaching? Is that more supervision? Is it more of a leadership? You know, that was the only part that sort of I questioned, what is a hard conversation? I suppose it's very contextual. But whether the coach was the right person to be having that conversation.
Trista? Just going back to everything that you had mentioned, and especially the way that she had written this book, it's really inspiring, because when we talk about, you know, those kind of tough or hard conversations, and she starts by giving examples herself within the book, within the examples, the scenarios that she's giving, and emphasizing the idea of giving feedback, and how to even to accept feedback, and how to manage, you know, those kind of situations. But I would also go back to one of the quotes in The Braving Inventory, when she says, knowledge is only rumor until it lives in the bones. So that goes, you know, help us to refocus on what exactly do we mean by knowledge, and how we transfer it to our own context, because sometimes we just use terms that it's irrelevant, or it's not working within us, but we don't stop a little bit and reflect how we can really practice that. Before you proceed to or whoever's going to comment, I also liked when she started within the introduction talking about the C level, the CC level. So that's something, and how she admitted that being afraid of talking to people, that she doesn't know them, and how she dealt with all this. I think this is something that we also as women need to express our emotions and deal with it. And, you know, this is something we all need to face it and emphasize. Robin.
Yeah, so Rania, and what I'd love to just build on what you have mentioned there, because I do think that what really comes through in this book is the humanity that underpins everything. So it's not about the importance of leadership. It's actually about the integrity and the servanthood of great leadership, and that at the heart of it all, I love her. I love Brené's, you know, reiteration that we are people. We are all just people. And this is something in my own space that has been just such a powerful gift, really, is having been in practice for so long, and having really worked with so many different, you know, different people at from lower income groups to really important heads of the capitalist economy, and actually at the end of it all, we are just human beings. We are people, and the methodologies that we use around leadership. So I have this very strong sense of our need to dig below the methodologies. The methodologies are extremely helpful. Any kind of leadership development tool, consciousness raising program, etc., they all have value, but we shouldn't mistake the method and the program for the truth of what it's trying to achieve. So methodologies, programs, even the sort of coaching tools are so powerful, but they are translations of an underlying truth. There are ways for us to access that, to kind of have a pathway that's built so that we can make the journey towards, at the end of the day, our own integrity. Who are we? What do we believe? How does that show up? How do I share that? How do I encourage others to share that? And something that I must say I have noticed is that there's almost a progression that happens when you speak to the most influential leaders. They have a deep, generally, very often, have a deeply spiritual approach to how they lead. But if you drop 2 or 3 levels down to sort of a mid-management or a, you know, maybe exec level leadership, there's still a lot of focus on methodology. And I think what I love about Brené's book here is really that step to move past the methodology that you are using and into the courage of showing up your genuine self, not with kind of your armor of this is how it's done, but of this is a way I can do this that actually reflects what I believe. And that's quite powerful.
Very, really powerful. And that idea of armor, I could hear something on the
student welfare.
we have somebody on the
Simon, do you want to?
so I do notice, you know, the armor is so important and it's so easy to put on. That's what as I was watching, reading through the idea of, you know, where does that come in? And one of the key pieces, even thinking about courage and stepping forward and showing up, is the, you know, the purpose. So what is it for? And it is really to make a difference. And at least that was one of the values that I circled. You know, it's really important to me to make a difference and to keep that in mind. But a helpful reminder was really thinking about, like, who is it that this matters to? So whose opinion matters? Really was I underlined it again, like you, Andrea. I read it like lots of sticky notes, lots of like come back, return to those ideas. But that was really important because I think I often fall in the, you know, whose voice I hear is maybe not the ones that I really should be looking to hold me accountable, because it's from a place of deep caring. So that definitely stood out to me. What are you thinking, Maria?
You're muted, Maria.
Sorry, it's okay, Trista. I think you covered what I wanted to say. It's fine.
I think that we also need to start early with our children, you know, with these kind of ideas and beliefs, not only for work and, you know, kind of higher age, but this is something that they really need to observe and understand early, not to wait till they face difficult things or difficult situations and then start reflecting on how to be there to lead. Andrea.
I think the one part, I think, you know, that you don't really know people until you take the time to understand their values. Everyone's so time poor. I mean, in schools, everyone's rushing, they're always saying, but, and when we're coaching, it's like having the opportunity just to have that space to think. Do you know what I mean? And to get to know people, I feel like it's a wonderful opportunity when you're coaching someone, because you get to know them and you get to hear and see, and they're working on, you know, sharing their values. And I think because everyone's so busy, it's really hard to find that time today.
Yeah. Sorry. Really, the quote that you put there, Trista, is one of the points that, you know, resonated with me so powerfully, mainly because I think it's written in the book that the greatest barrier to courageous leadership is how we respond to our fear, how we respond to that, okay? And the moment I read that, the first thing which came to my mind was, how did I respond to the challenges that I have faced as a young woman leader within a centralized context, for example, okay? Where I think this is something that even research has shown that it's difficult to put in the right way. It's quite common that women leaders to have to prove to some colleagues that they can do well, in a leadership position. So I remember when I first started, taking up a leadership position, for example, I really had to try very hard and seek for advice and support from colleagues, senior colleagues, in order to be able to find the courage to, to show to other people that I can do well in that job, because you have to prove a lot. I mean, this is certainly based on my own experience. You have to prove a lot to other people that, you have to persuade your colleagues that you can do that. Yeah.
I love that, Maria,
quote,
I think spending time and energy on proving yourself takes away from that time and energy on improving yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think that's always been, I wrote about that quite a few years ago, that you waste that energy on proving yourself to other people. And then it comes back to who defines your success? Who do we give that to? So, yeah, really resonated with me there, Maria.
Yeah, me too. And thanks for sharing that, Maria, too. And I think it does bubble up a lot of your own experiences. And I remember, one of my first, taking on that role as a school leader and running my first staff meeting. And I remember one of the men at the back of the room came up and said, I don't really trust you or respect you. You're going to have to earn my trust and respect. And that was within my first 2 days. And I thought, holy cow, this is gonna be tough. And the sweat is coming through, and and then it was hard, and just I do really believe in connections and relationships and trying to build that in. So that's what I wanted to bring to staff meetings. And I just remember walking through the halls, and another colleague turned and said, if you're doing one of those stupid ball games this evening at our staff meeting, and I'm like, well, yes, we are. And I'll see you there, walking away this is not going well. It's just that staying and finding the people that help you stay on that track, people can be cruel.
Yes, especially that you had mentioned this already, as she mentioned within the book, and I discussed with Andrea earlier, is about being perfect. The idea of wanting or seeking to have this kind of recognition of everyone that I'm doing it perfectly, etc. And this is causing lots of problem. That's not excellence, and how she defined it, and how we also need to make sure of that. And by nature, I don't think that there's something perfect within this life, but we need to excel. We need to see how we can really enjoy what we're doing and reach to the level that, or to rise, as also she had mentioned within the book, learn how to rise, and start helping others, serving others to unleash their potentials, and also to do it in an enjoyable, heartful, best way that everyone can do that. Robin, I think you wanted to.
Thanks, Rania. Yeah, I think Tristan and Maria and Andrea, just the conversation is so powerful, and brings us back to the point that Brene makes in this book about self-compassion. So firstly, that the remedy to self-doubt is not working harder, it's self-compassion. And also that beautiful quote, somewhat overused, but utterly true, that that perfection is the enemy of excellence. So perfection is it is a driver of self-doubt. It is a driver of self-loathing. And when looking for whose opinion to listen to, so I have an automatic response to if when I hear a story about somebody who kind of is, well, you're not good enough for me, show me first. And actually it's very rebellious. Well, you know, it doesn't matter to me because I'm not trying to be here to be good enough for you. We'll see how it goes. And really actually being able to take that, but not to buckle under it, and to rather look for where are the people who are looking for me to succeed, because their opinion is what really, really matters. And if they aren't present, how do I go out and find them and bring them into my circle of 7? So there's this wonderful wonderful concept which is born out kind of in a lot of different ecological frameworks around how we create shift. And one of my favorite examples is that of the swallows. So this collective of swallows, how do they move? You see these massive migrations moving as one with no leader. And the magic number is 7, you know? So how do I find my circle of 7 who support my self-growth? Just beautiful way of thinking.
That is such a beautiful concept. And I think, you know, as I hear, where was my Robin to say those words, you know? And I think that's the purpose of this meeting and why we are coming together and trying to provide a space. And if you see Mayameen in the chat is talking about networking with other fellow women colleagues, but that idea of genuinely, we all rise when we support one another. You know, it's not a competition. It's, you know, finding the new colleagues. I mean, that's my work around supporting, mentoring and coaching new early career folk. You know, we need to help so at that early phase that those people who take a risk and try different things feel supported. And, you know, yes, inevitably we're going to fail, right? Courage that's part of it, but we learn the most from those moments. And so how do we build a support network so those become opportunities for growth, and finding what fits into your integrity and your values? Rania, I think you something, or Andrea, sorry, Andrea, go ahead.
It's okay. I was just going to say, Kirsten, she's on Twitter. She's amazing. We had her speak at a Renaissance Women, and she said, you know, we shouldn't be putting the ladder down for other women to come up. We should be actually throwing the net out for a whole lot of women to come up. And I just thought that is so beautiful, because only one person can come up the ladder, but we together, a whole lot of people together to support each other. And it's exactly right. When I'm going down under that red, we call it the red line under emotional intelligence, when you're needing a little bit of support, I make a phone call to one of my friends who I know that will be on the other line ready to speak to me if I need it. So yeah, having that network of people, and as those, you know, that list of values, it's belonging and connectedness that's something we can all connect here because we were all in Morocco together. So yeah.
But it's a remarkable thing as well. It just is bringing forth that concept around how do you manage shame. And I know for me, you know, the power of humor, to throw shame out of the room, being able to kind of speak to your people who love you, not because of what you're doing, but just because, well, they're crazy enough to love you, and share the most humiliating things that happen. And suddenly they become very, very funny, and they lose all their power to hold you. So yeah, really seek out the people who make you laugh. It's wonderful.
It's really important. And I think before ending this, Trista, first of all, I really, really, really appreciate this great opportunity when Trista started saying, let's book club each other. And now we're having this lovely gathering with amazing ladies that discussing from their experience, research, and even their practices. What I loved about this book, especially as a lady, an Arab lady, that it's international. Sometimes we think that it's only happening to me, but it's not the case. So by sharing and by discussing, by networking, you will discover, no, you have lots of things that you can do, you can practice, and you can overcome or even find solutions for. So this is the beauty of not only reading a book, also discussing it, because now you enlighten each other and we share, those kind of insights and those kind of experiences, which also enrich whatever that she had mentioned within the book. I know that we have lovely ladies that I attended Mayamin, maybe we know. I have some of my students also here. Ihsan is helping us with the translation, honor students. So a woman, Ed, from Canada, Australia, Mina, supporting this. So it's not only feeling isolated, because we're not. We just need to celebrate this kind of idea. And I'm really so grateful for the people who are starting their day, Trista and Andrea, ending their day.
It's amazing what the virtual has offered us this year. I think, it's been a tough year, and of course I'd love to be able to hug everybody in person, but these moments of connection all across the globe, and to be able to, like you said, discuss a book that meant something to us, to see how it resonates in different spaces for different people, and what they can take away from it it's so amazing. So grateful to be here.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're all here, and just keep it going, because this kind of networking can be a good influence to some of us or most of us, and inspiration, and why not? And a way to empowerment.
So what's the next book? Somebody asked for the next book, Rania. Did you want to share, or Trista want to share the next book?
All right, let's see. So we got here. I think, before I do the big reveal and the date, this was a question that kept coming up for me in the space that we work, right? How do we create braver leadership and more courageous cultures? And the spaces that we work in, how do we provide that opportunity for others, for ourselves, and to be thinking about that is what I really am going to be taking away from this book myself, and in the work that I do. Where am I allowing that time? I think you're so right, Andrea, about the time poor. But we also, Bernie talks about how if we don't put in the time early, that it does come back in the culture. So it's so important to be thinking about these spaces. And so this is something, I don't know if anyone wanted to comment on this before I do the big reveal. Any ideas?
She already started this within the book when she said that we need also to lean in. And with sharing those kind of practices from the field, I think this is also very insightful and very helpful. From the early beginning, when she started talking about the levels or the stories, I think we need to start sharing more and more and more of those. Because sometimes for me, I see that the kind of ideas, the negative aspect or stories sometimes rise or be shared, but we don't allow much for sharing kind of courageous or braver situations, even with something that you think it's nothing, but it means a lot for another one. And that's how we say, like, 10% braver. We don't want you to change the whole world with one step. You can just do it gradually. My insight.
Thanks. Andrea, thoughts, closing thoughts?
I think it's just taking time to connect with people and be their support, and then learn from others. I think that's really important too. Learn about yourself and learn about others.
Thanks. Maria, then Robin.
I will make a connection here to another quote from the book. I think creating braver leaders is probably through making them understand that they can own their own story and get to write the ending. So that can be a way. We need to understand that the answers are inside us, and we need a strong network of support in order to be able to be braver, to deal with all these challenging circumstances. I'm Greek by origin, so I think some of you know that I'm going to refer to a philosopher and so on and so forth. So, you know, Socrates, one of the greatest philosophers of ancient Greece, believed that effective leadership depends on professional competence, and he believed that we should always question others about their views in order to be able to find the truth. So I think probably there is a good way to find the potential in people through questioning them and challenging their views, and make them understand that they should challenge the status quo. And then, you know, this might in turn lead to creating braver leaders. But this is the last statement is quite anecdotal, so I don't have the evidence on that anyway, but just a few thoughts.
I'll be expecting a Greek reference as we go along, right, Maria?
You knew that I'm going to say something about.
You have to, and consistent too, please, Maria. I want it consistent each month. Thanks.
Robin, how about you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I think just to go back, take time to make time. You know, take time to interrogate and spend time with your own thoughts, your own values. Take time to be with others who both challenge you, so not support you unconditionally in the sense that anything you say goes, but support your essence and challenge you to remain within your essential values, challenge you to remain within your integrity, and take the time to support others. So make that time available, because we become so busy with the jobs that we have to do and fail to recognize that actually when we take time to genuinely understand what is it that we believe in, that we want to achieve, and that holds us in our integrity, actually seas open up before us when we've made that commitment to being who we truly want to be in the world, and not just doing everything that comes our way, doing the things that support that.
Yeah, and that reminds me of the idea of the big concept, right? Boundaries, integrity, and generosity. So living big, and the struggle around boundaries. So making sure you set time, and really that time is so crucial, and the importance of relationship. I think it just has given a reminder again that that relationship is something that needs to be prioritized, that is at the core of good or effective leadership or work accompaniment. It's about that connection and that relationship. And I am going to be taking away the 7 swallows, Robin. For sure, I'm going to be thinking about my swallows all day today. And those are the voices that matter. And again, not the people that just support you and no matter what, but challenge you. Rania, am I ready for the big reveal here?
Yes, just go. Ta-da!
So we have our next book is Emotional Agility by Susan David. And I know you've already had a chance to read this, Andrea, so we're looking forward to digging in. So April 1st will be our next time together. We welcome anyone to come and join, ask us questions as well in the chat, and have your own conversation simultaneously and connect in and out with us. And please reach out to us on Twitter. Here are our handles and the hashtag that we're just starting up, I think, Rania. We're getting moving on this thanks to your expertise in all things organization. So a huge thank you to you for putting this together, and to all of you for making this happen. We have a few more minutes left. Is there any, I have some questions in the chat perhaps, or any thoughts to produce? please read the book. Asma, you're asking, I would love, yes, read the book, come join us, share your thoughts. It should be, I think, on their availability and also an ebook. Is that right?
I've got the audio book and the other book. So I walked while listening to it, which was great. But then I went back and bought the book so that I could pull all those quotes out. So yeah, and it's amazing what Twitter can do, because the author, I wrote something about it and she liked it. So there you go. It's just amazing how, you know, you're reading and they can connect with you.
We're encouraging also the ladies that they are hearing this in Arabic. Please write also in your own language, because this book is not translated as far as I know. Write your quotes, write your blogs, just share the ideas that you had and even your own experiences, because this is the whole idea of coming together. Yes, we can read it by ourselves, but it's better to have this kind of lovely discussion, sharing ideas and networking and starting our days or ending our days.
Absolutely.
And being together and connecting. I put the name of the book in the chat. And a big shout out, Robin. Brene Brown liked your tweet on this. So it'd be really great to hear what we have to say. And I know that there's a submission. So the Women Ed it has joined with the Innovate Journal. And they are, you know, that 10% braver component. I'll try to do a capture. So as a group, we'll try to capture some of our thoughts from today and submit that. And the idea being there are lots of amazing opportunities in book clubs. I know there's a slow book club that Women Ed runs, lots of great events happening with Women Ed all over the different regions and different countries. Check those out. They are amazing. And I think just to connect to one another. And who knew that our meeting in Morocco with the International Congress for School Effectiveness and Improvement, so ICSE, would bring the 5 of us together. I think we met on a bus, Robin. We happened to be seated right beside each other, right in front. And anyway, so taking these opportunities and building on you know, taking people's contact information and following up when you have a spark can lead to like amazing.
How to find your circles of 7, you know, go to places where people are who you really like, and it's amazing what happens.
So now we have around 4 or 5, so you know it's easier for you to complete the list.
Awesome.
Thank you, ladies.
Well, thank you, Rania. Thanks,
very
Maria.
much. Thank you. Lovely
Thanks,
to
Robin
see
and
you.
Trista.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Big hug.
Bye.
Thank you for the audience. الله يجزيكم خير لحضوركم. كل الشكر. Thank you, ladies. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.